Welcome back, everybody. And tonight, we explore the terrifying secrets of an abandoned hospital. If you dare, watch till the end. What you're about to see will haunt your dreams forever. Viewer discretion is advised for this one. You enter at your own risk. We begin tonight's story in an unnamed city in the United States. As we pan across the front lawn, we can see that this large structure is completely deserted. It has been empty for many years. The paint is chipping off the side of the building. Trees have begun to grow out of the cracked asphalt of the parking lot. Grass and weeds are growing through the pavement. As we walk toward the front door, we can see that it is wide open, almost as if someone just walked right through it and never came back. We push open the door and walk inside, and the wind begins to pick up, causing the old-fashioned glass window to rattle in its frame. It looks like someone is standing outside the window, but when we turn around, no one is there. Walking down the hallway, we can hear our footsteps echoing off the tiled floor. In the distance, we hear what sounds like a gurney rolling down the hallway by itself. Then the lights flicker overhead and everything goes silent again. Suddenly, we hear a whisper on the wind that says, "Help me." We turn around to try to locate the voice, but there is no one there. The doors in the hall begin to creak open and shut on their own, and the sound of whispering continues. It sounds like hundreds of voices all trying to speak at once. We continue down the hallway until we reach the end where the shadows seem to be taking on a life of their own. Suddenly, a dark shadow can be seen darting across the hallway and disappearing behind one of the doors. Could this place really be haunted? Is there someone or something still living here? Taking a closer look at the photo, we can see that it was taken sometime in the early 1900s. There were several doctors who worked here, and from the looks of things, they seemed to be well respected by the community. But what happened to them? Where did everyone go? The last entry in the guest book reads, "May the good Lord have mercy on our souls." This begs the question, why would someone write this? And if so, why would they say such a thing? What could have possibly happened here for someone to think such a thing? And now it's time to find out. We begin to walk down the hallway, and everywhere we look, there are creepy things lying around. There are wheelchairs, gurneys, an old television set, and other equipment, all of it covered in dust and cobwebs. As we round the corner, we can see a pair of legs sticking out from under a sheet. What we discover is a skeleton dressed in a hospital gown. How long has this person been dead? And how did they die? Was it an accident or something more sinister? Continuing down the hallway, we can see a wall covered in names. At first, we thought it was some sort of memorial, but as we got closer, we realized that these were all the people who had died within these four walls. Some of the names are familiar to us, but most are not. Why did they put the name of the dead on the walls? What happened here? We walk into what used to be the pharmacy. On the shelves are dusty bottles filled with pills and medicine. Some of the labels are still visible, and therefore medications that are no longer available. It looks like the pharmacy closed down years ago, but what happened to all the medication? Who took it? We walk over to the window and peer out into the courtyard. All we can see is a basketball court, swings, and jungle gym. It looks like children are playing outside, but when we turn around, no one is there, and we can still hear the children laughing and playing. Is this a trick of the mind, or is there something more going on here? We walk over to a nearby table and notice a leather-bound journal. Inside the journal, we find a series of entries written by one of the doctors who worked here. The final entry reads, "I don't know how much longer I can keep this place open. The town is starting to turn on us. They say we're nothing more than butchers, that we're harvesting the organs of the dead, but it's not true. We're doing God's work here. We're helping people. The townspeople just don't understand. But what were they doing here? What were they helping people with? And what do they mean by harvesting organs? Was this place a butcher shop or something more sinister?" We walk over to a metal cabinet and open it. Inside, we find a meat cleaver, scalpels, and other tools. It looks like whatever was going on here was not of this world. These tools were used for more than just surgery. We walk over to a stainless steel table and notice a series of strange symbols carved into the surface. What do they mean, and what was their purpose? We walk into what used to be the operating room. The walls are covered in bloodstains, and the floor is littered with bones. It looks like something horrible happened here, but what? We walk over to the operating table and notice a series of surgical instruments lying on the cold, hard steel. One of the instruments is a strange device that looks like a cross between a meat cleaver and a guillotine. What was it used for? And what did they do with the body afterwards? We walk over to a nearby chair and sit down. Suddenly, the lights flicker and the entire room plunges into darkness. We can hear the sound of screams, and the smell of burning flesh fills the air. Was this place used for more than just surgery? Was it also used as a place to torture and kill? We walk into the basement and notice a series of dark, narrow tunnels. What are they, and where do they lead? We walk down the stairs and find ourselves in a dark, dank chamber. The only light comes from a small opening at the top of the stairs. In the center of the room is a large metal device with a series of levers and pulleys. What is it, and what was it used for? Suddenly, we hear the sound of chains dragging metal moans. We turn around to look, but there is no one there. We can feel the chains dragging on the floor, slowly approaching us. We turn and run as fast as we can up the stairs and out of the basement. But we're not alone. We can hear the chains dragging behind us. We turn and see the metal device from the basement dragging itself closer and closer. It seems to be alive, moving on its own. We turn and run as fast as we can down the hallway. But the sound of chains is getting louder. We can hear them dragging, clanking, echoing throughout the hospital. We turn and see the metal device from the basement, moving faster now, its chains dragging on the floor, getting closer and closer. We turn and run down the hallway, but there is nowhere to hide. The sound of chains is deafening now, and we can feel the vibrations in our bones. We turn and see the metal device from the basement, moving quickly now, its chains dragging on the floor. It's almost upon us, and then everything goes black. We wake up to find ourselves strapped to the operating table. We struggle to free ourselves as the sound of chains drags on in our ears. The basement door opens and a dark shadow appears in the doorway. We scream and thrash about, but it's too late. The creature from the basement is upon us. Its chains drag on the floor as it approaches. Its eyes glow red in the darkness. Its teeth are sharp and long, its claws hooked and deadly. It lunges, and the screen fades to black. Now, before we reveal what's behind this mask, let's take a moment to remember those who suffered and died here. We will never forget the pain and torment they endured. Their sacrifice will not be in vain. And now it's time to uncover the truth. Taking off the mask, we can see that it was one of the doctors from the photos. What happened to him? Why did he become so twisted and evil? As we delve deeper into the hospital's history, we uncover a dark secret. This was no ordinary hospital. It was a place where scientists conducted horrific experiments on unsuspecting patients. They would strap them to tables and use devices like the one found in the basement to extract their organs. They would then use these organs to create a serum that would grant immortality. But the serum was unstable and would cause the user to become insane. The doctor who wrote the journal was one of the scientists working here. He was horrified by what was happening and tried to escape, but his colleagues trapped him in the basement and used him as a test subject. The creature that attacked us is the result of their experiments. It is a being of pure evil, and it's here to collect our souls. But before it can do that, we must show it the mercy it never received. We grab the meat cleaver and charge. The being screeches as we bring the cleaver down on its head. It collapses, and with a final surge of strength, we cut off its head. As the being's life force fades, its eyes lose their glow, and it becomes human. We had killed the monster, but at what cost? We were now covered in its blood, and we knew that we would never be the same again. But we had uncovered the truth and brought an end to the suffering of those trapped within these four walls. As we exit the hospital, the sun rises, and for the first time in many years, the building is filled with light. We had freed the souls trapped here, and now we could move on with our lives. But as we turned to leave, we noticed something strange in the grass. It was an old shoe, a child's shoe. We picked it up and brushed off the dirt and cobwebs. And then we saw it. It was a name brand shoe. A name brand shoe that was made in the 1940s. But who could have owned such a shoe? And what happened to them? As we continued our investigation, we uncovered a dark secret. This was no ordinary hospital. It was a place where children were brought to be experimented on. The scientists would test new drugs and medical procedures on them, but the experiments were always fatal. One of the doctors was responsible for overseeing the children's ward. He became so attached to one of the patients that he named her Elizabeth. When Elizabeth died during an experiment, the doctor was devastated. He hid her body and made a cast of her face. We discovered the cast in the basement, hidden under a pile of trash. It was a perfect replica of a young girl's face. But who was she, and what happened to her? As we continued our investigation, we found a logbook that detailed every experiment that was performed on the children. We found Elizabeth's name in the book and learned that she had died from a drug overdose. But something didn't add up. The doctor had clearly cared for Elizabeth and wouldn't have allowed her to be subjected to such a dangerous experiment. We began to suspect that the doctor had killed Elizabeth himself. We confronted him with our theory, but he denied it. He claimed that he had nothing to do with Elizabeth's death. But we knew he was lying. We searched his office and found a hidden compartment containing a diary. The diary contained the doctor's thoughts and feelings about his work, and in it we found the truth. The doctor had fallen in love with Elizabeth and couldn't bear the thought of her dying. So he had secretly given her a lethal dose of medication. He believed that he was protecting her from the other scientists, but in reality he had condemned her to an eternity of suffering. We were horrified by what we had read, but we knew that we had to destroy the diary. If anyone else got their hands on it, they could use it to blackmail the doctor, or worse. We took the diary to the basement and threw it into the incinerator. As the flames engulfed the diary, we felt a sense of relief. Finally, Elizabeth could rest in peace. As the sun began to set, we knew it was time to leave. We had uncovered the truth about this hospital and the children who had died there. We had brought Elizabeth peace, but we would never forget the horrors we had seen. But before we left, we had to do one more thing. We returned to the wall, where the names of the dead were written, and erased them. We didn't know what would happen if anyone ever found out, but we knew that it was the right thing to do. As we walked away from the hospital, we could feel the presence of the dead watching over us. We knew that they were grateful for what we had done, but we also knew that we would never be the same again.